In 2006, IDF soldier Gilad Shalit was kidnapped by Hamas from his military base in southern Israel. For 5 years, he was held in captivity as the various Israeli governments attempted negotiations for his release. Exactly 1 year ago, in October 2011, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu approved a prisoner exchange deal with Hamas in which Shalit was at last released in exchange for 1,027 security prisoners, including hundreds with blood on their hands. 1 year later, we revisited that decision.
When Gilad was I was looking on the TV and I can't stop crying. I mean, to see him make a salute to Netanyahu or hugged by his father or by his mother. But it was not an easy day to see immediately after the footage of the murder going back cheerfully to Gaza or into Western Bank.
Yossi Mendellevich is one of many families who lost their loved ones to terror. His son Yuval was murdered when a bus taking him home from school in Haifa was blown up by a terrorist from Hebron in 2003.
The suicide murderer was standing about 1 meter from him, so we have no chance to survive. And all his beautiful body has been brutalized and torn into pieces and then burned in that situation. The 4 convicted murderers of the group that killed Yuval, my son, have been released. They were so proud about it that during their time in jail, they said that soon they will be released and they will going back to kill Jews.
It is reported that the transaction releasing prisoners in exchange for Shalit's liberation from captivity was revised 7 times before Netanyahu approved it. And yet families of terror victims who saw the perpetrators of their loved ones set free that day feel outraged and believe this plan was not thought out enough.
By releasing these convicted murderers, the government betrayed me twice. And the first, they don't defend my children on the bus. And the second time is again, you release this convicted murderer back to terror and back to threaten my beloved children and family that are alive. Of course, I'm in favor for the release of the kidnapped soldier, but not in this outrageous way. What actually we done in standing of lower the flame in the Middle East, we are strengthening the Hamas on the one hand, and on the other hand, strengthen the terror action and the terror level and the terror quality of the Hamas.
Tammy Schenkman led the 4-year campaign for Gilad Shalit's release, a PR campaign which ultimately rendered success. She makes sure to point out that terrorism was always an issue in Israel.
In Israel, we are fighting terrorism all the time. It was before Gilad Shalit went to the army. It was during Gilad Shalit was also captured in the Hamas. And unfortunately, we'll have to fight them all the time after the releasing of Gilad Shalit. Gilad Shalit cannot be the insurance that terrorism will not be.
Opponents of the exchange made say that aside from negotiating for the release of prisoners, a different strategy could have been enforced in order to release Shalit, whether in military action or by applying financial sanctions. However, advocates of the deal claim that the government showed no other alternative.
Gilad Shalit's family all the time said, if there is any kinds of alternative, do it. But unfortunately, most of the people in the government say there is no alternative, and most of the people also in the army said that there is no another alternative. Unfortunately, we went to an operation in Gaza, and almost the prime ministers said that we will not return from the operation in Gaza until Gilad will return, but it didn't happen. So if there is no alternative, the only thing that we can do is only to do the negotiation with the Hamas to release prisoners for Gilad Shalit, despite the very heavy price, unfortunately.
In Israel, every high school graduate is obliged to enlist and serve 3 years in the military. Therefore, the fate of these young soldiers is of everyone's concern. Advocates say that if the government would have left Shalit behind, instead of making concessions for the sake of his return, Israelis would have lost trust in the system.
Everyone that goes to the army gives their life for the country. So it's a duty. And it's not an opportunity like in other places, or you are not volunteer to the army, and you expect that if you are giving your life for the country will give her protection to you when something, God forbidden, happened. So the families expect that the government and the army will do everything to return the soldiers back home.
However, for families of Israeli terror victims, the price for releasing captive soldiers was simply too high, seeing as their loved ones will never be returning home. For JN1, I'm Sivan Raviv, Israel.